Those damn Republicans make me so mad. They are trying to cut all social programs so they can give tax breaks to their rich friends.
What? Why do you say that?
Are you kidding? Don't you pay attention? The House Republicans just slashed $61 billion from the budget. They are trying to kill old people.
Well, I'm not sure that $61 billion out of a $1.2 trillion budget proposal amounts to much.
Are you crazy? It's $61 billion, man. We need that money to stimulate the economy. You economic illiterate.
Well, think of it this way. It is $61 billion out of $1,200 billion. It's only 5%. And besides, didn't we already try injecting almost $1 trillion to stimulate the economy? That was an epic fail. And now you are throwing a hissy fit over a measly $61 billion. You realize that we are $14 trillion in debt, right?
Who cares how much debt we are in? People need jobs. People need services. People need health care. Those greedy Republicans insist on tax cuts for the wealthy, and the poor and middle class have to foot the bill. Goddess bless the Democrats who want everyone to have a job, their services, and their goddess-given right to free health care.
Instead of trying to argue with you, I would just like to ask you to think about something. Please just think about this instead of waiting for your turn to talk so you can press play on your talking points. Okay? Everyone, including Democrats and Republicans, want people to have the things they need, including healthcare, a job, food, and a house. My question for you to ponder is this: what is the best, most efficient method of producing and consuming these goods?
What in the hell are you talking about?
My question is whether or not the federal government is the most efficient tool to provide those critical goods. Is the best way for society to acquire the things that they need, for the federal government to centrally manage and plan for the production, distribution, and consumption of those goods.
Well, who else should provide it then? Isn't that the government's job?
Okay, that is the right question. Who should provide these things? You can basically boil down that question to whether the government should be responsible for these critical goods and services, or that people should be free to do it themselves on the free market.
The free market? That is too funny. The free market gave us the bank crisis, the housing bubble, and Enron. You cannot be serious.
While I think that any critical analysis of those things will show you that it was, in fact, the government who was mostly responsible for them, I don't want to argue with you over those points. But let's look at the things the government is responsible for and how well they do them. First, the post office. The post office is a government responsibility, and just last year it lost $8.5 billion. The year before that it lost $3.8 billion. The year before that $2.8 billion. Compare that to UPS or FedEx, who both made billions of dollars in profit last year and the year before and the year before. Why is it that the private companies can make billions of dollars each year and the federal government loses billions of dollars each year doing basically the same exact thing?
So, the post office sucks. What else?
Let's look at education. The federal government has spent $1.8 trillion on education since the creation of the Department of Education in 1979, and the United States is only outspent by Switzerland internationally, but ranks 23rd in science, 17th in reading, and 31st in math. The graduation rates of U.S. students has fell now for 2 consecutive years at only 69%. But homeschooled students score between 30 and 37 percentile points higher than public school students in all subjects.
Okay, so that is 2 things the government isn't so great at. That doesn't mean that the private sector is the best at everything.
Well, the one area that I can think of that has had the least amount of government regulation and interference, and has been rather unrestricted, is the Internet. Think of how amazing the Internet is. It is truly a revolution. Think back 20 years ago. If you wanted something, you had to go to a store and get it, order it over the telephone, or mail order it. Now, You can get things from almost anywhere in the world with the click of a mouse. You can find directions to anywhere. You can talk to people on the other side of the planet. You can view videos shot by citizens from other countries documenting war, unrest, oppression, or celebration. There is almost nothing you cannot get from the internet. And it has grown. And grown at lightning speed. Only restricted by the limitations of our minds. Government could never have designed or regulated the internet to reach this state. I shudder to think what the internet would, or better, wouldn't be if the government decides it needs to regulate.
I like the internet. But what about the people who can't afford it?
You hear me, but you aren't listening, are you?
The free market isn't so great. The government has to do these things to make sure that greedy corporations and their Republican buddies don't take advantage of people.
Did you know that last year, 12,965 lobbyists spent $3.5 billion lobbying Congress? They lobby both parties. The list of the top 7 recipients of lobbyist dollars during the 2010 campaign cycle in the Senate contains 4 Democrats and 3 Republicans. And in the House also 4 Democrats and 3 Republicans.
What does that mean?
The question to ask yourself is this. Why would lobbyists give so much money to politicians from both parties?
I don't know. Why?
Because they want to ensure that new laws and regulations affect their particular business or industry the least, and put them at an advantage over their competitors. So big corporations lobby with more money and influence than small companies. And thus, you do not have capitalism, you have crony capitalism. Not a free market problem, but a government problem.
I still hate the Republicans. I want free health care.
Some will still argue, despite the long list of boondoggles and wasted trillions of dollars, that government should provide these things. But would you rather be free or a servant to a government full of politicians who can be bought? Remember, a government big enough to supply you with everything you need is a government big enough to take away everything that you have.